People who often fall into toxic relationships aren't usually the weak ones. They're often the kindest, most patient, and most empathetic people in the room. Have you ever wondered why you keep meeting the exact same type of person? The one who's hot and cold without explanation. The one who makes you feel like you're the problem in every argument. The one who apologizes beautifully, but then does the exact same thing the next time. You've blocked them. You've sworn never to go back. You thought you were done. Then you meet someone else, a different name, a different face, but that feeling's exactly the same. That cycle's exactly the same. And at that moment, you start wondering, is it me? Well, today I'm going to give you a straight answer to that question. Not by telling you that you need to love yourself more or set boundaries, things you've heard 100 times and yet nothing's changed. But by showing you the exact root cause, that invisible force that's controlling you without you even seeing it. And more importantly, how to dismantle it. When you're in a bad relationship, most people do something that's very natural. They analyze their partner. That person's a narcissist. They're immature. They've had psychological issues since childhood. And usually, they're right. Absolutely right. But here's the question almost no one asks themselves. Why me out of the dozens or hundreds of people they meet? Why am I the one who stays the longest? Why am I the one who endures the most? Why am I the last one to finally leave? This isn't a question meant for self-blame. It's the most important question you need to ask. Because its answer is what'll actually change everything. Imagine it like this. A shark doesn't just swim randomly and attack whoever it sees. It picks up signals in the water, vibrations, temperature, the scent of blood even at 1 part per million. It doesn't show up by luck. It shows up because there's a signal leading the way. People with toxic tendencies operate the same way. They don't sit around planning. Today, I'm going to find someone to control. They're simply sensitive to a certain frequency. Limitless endurance. The need for acceptance. A fear of abandonment so overwhelming that you're willing to overlook every red flag. The point isn't that you were chosen. The point is that you're unconsciously emitting that frequency, and you don't even realize you're doing it. In psychology, this phenomenon has a specific name. Repetition compulsion. Freud was the first to describe it in the early 20th century. But don't let that classic name fool you into thinking it's outdated, because decades of neuroscientific research have since confirmed it. The human brain has an unconscious tendency to recreate familiar emotional scenarios from the past. Not because they're good, but because they're familiar. And your brain, in its sometimes strange intelligence, is trying to finish an unfinished story you don't even remember starting. Let me show you what that unfinished story is. Where's it start? Your brain learns how to love for the first time not from a lover, not from movie, and not from books. It learns from your caregivers, from your father, your mother, or whoever the first adults in your life were. If that person loved you consistently and securely, meaning they were there when you needed them, responded appropriately when you were in pain, and didn't suddenly withdraw emotionally, then your brain learned a very clear equation. Love is peace. Love is trustworthy. But if the love you received in childhood came with unexplained coldness, unpredictable rages, and the feeling that you had to behave perfectly just to be accepted, your brain still learned. It just learned a different equation. Love is tension. Love is effort. Love equals uncertainty, yet it's still worth chasing. And this is where things get interesting, in a very painful way. As you grow up, you meet someone stable, someone who treats you well right from the start, someone who doesn't play cat and mouse games, someone who replies when you text and shows up on time for dates. And you feel something's missing, boring, not attractive enough. But when you meet someone who's hot and cold, someone who treats you like the center of the universe one day, then disappears for 3 days without reason. Your heart beats faster. You call that chemistry. You think it's a sign of true love. But actually, that's not chemistry. It's the familiarity of an old wound being reactivated. Your brain can't tell the difference between excitement from happiness and excitement from fear. It only recognizes a single sensation and labels it, I know this one. This is love. I remember when I was 26, I had a tendency to chase people who made me constantly prove myself, while avoiding those who simply cared for me. I didn't understand why back then. I just felt like I didn't have any strong feelings for safe people. It wasn't until I really sat down and worked through my childhood emotional map that I realized I was looking for familiarity, not happiness. Those two things are very different. Now, let's go a bit deeper. In developmental psychology, there's a crucial concept called attachment style, and it affects every relationship you have in your adult life, from romance to friendships, to even how you work with your boss. I'm going to talk about a specific type, anxious attachment. People with this attachment style usually have a very characteristic cycle. They invest very deeply and very quickly at the start of a relationship. They love intensely. They're willing to give so much, but when the partner withdraws a bit, even if they're just busy or just need space, someone with anxious attachment doesn't read that signal normally. They read it as a threat. Something's happened. Did I do something wrong? Are they going to leave me? And the how More. Now, put this person next to the opposite type. Avoidant attachment. Avoidant people are the opposite. The more pressure they feel, the more they withdraw. The more they're clung to, the more suffocated they feel. But when you let go, they move closer again. These two attachment styles find each other like magnets. Not because they're compatible, but because they trigger each other's deepest fears exactly. The anxious person finds the exact cycle their brain's used to. Chasing, proving, waiting, hoping, getting a little response, then losing it again, then chasing again. And that cycle keeps spinning. Year after year, person after person. The names change, but the script doesn't. But there's a third route, and this is the one very few people are willing to look straight at. It doesn't have to do with your parents. It doesn't have to do with your exes. It has to do with what you believe about yourself at the deepest level. I want you to really sit with this question. You don't need to answer out loud. Just let it sink in. Do I deserve to be loved without having to do anything to earn it? Not the answer you want to believe, but the answer your actions are showing. Because if your subconscious truly believed you're worthy, you wouldn't stay when you're treated poorly. You wouldn't make excuses for others when they hurt you. You wouldn't feel relieved when they return after disappearing for 7 days without reason. But if somewhere deep inside, you carry an underlying belief that you're only worthy of conditional love, then you'll constantly seek out relationships where you have to earn love. Because that's the only thing that feels real to you. Someone who treats you well from the start. You find it hard to believe. You wonder what they want. You wait for them to change. The person who makes you struggle, prove yourself, or climb mountains to win their attention. You find that normal. You might even find it worth it. Because deep down, you believe love's something that must be won, not something you naturally receive. Here's what I need to tell you straight. The problem isn't that you don't know how to choose good people. The problem is you're choosing the exact people who match your silent level of self-worth. And as long as that level doesn't change, the people you choose won't change either. And here's what I want you to hear clearly. It's not your fault. No one chooses to program that emotional map for themselves. No one asks to be born into those circumstances. But changing it is your responsibility, because no one else can do it for you. The first step isn't changing behavior. Before changing behavior, you need to change awareness. Because behavior is just a symptom, awareness is the root. And here's the first tool. Next time you meet someone and feel your heart race, feel an immediate attraction. Feel like this is it. This is exactly the person I've been looking for. Instead of chasing that feeling, stop and ask yourself a very simple question. Is this feeling familiar because it's good, or because it's similar to what I'm used to enduring? It sounds simple, but this is a technique with a real scientific basis. Matthew Lieberman, a professor of social cognitive neuroscience at UCLA, has researched and shown that when we label our emotions, the prefrontal cortex is activated, and that reduces activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for immediate emotional responses. This technique's called affective labeling. When you label a feeling, you're no longer swept up in it. You step back and observe it. You don't need to decide right away if that person's good. You don't need to do anything at all in that moment. The second exercise, I need you to get a piece of paper or open the notes on your phone and write down this sentence, then complete it. I believe I have to do something to be loved. And the second sentence, a person who truly loves me will always be like this. Don't write what you want to believe. Write what your actions and relationships have shown you actually believe. For example, I believe I must always yield, never be demanding, and understand my partner even when they don't understand me in order to be loved. Or, a person who truly loves me will always make me feel uncertain. When you write it down, you'll see your entire implicit love map appear before your eyes. This is a technique called schema identification in schema therapy, one of the most effective cognitive therapy methods developed by Jeffrey Young. It helps people see the core beliefs that are invisibly controlling their behavior. And here's the important part. When you write it down, it's no longer an invisible belief running underneath. It becomes something you can see, and what you can see, you can question. You can ask, where's this belief come from? Is it real, or is it just something I learned a long time ago and never checked again? What you can see, you can change. This is the third step. And it's the hardest one, not because it's complicated, but because it goes against everything your emotions are telling you. You need to learn how to sit with normalcy without running away. It sounds simple, but let me show you what happens in reality. When you're used to drama, to those constant emotional highs and lows, then when things become stable, your brain doesn't read that as happiness. It reads it as a deficiency. It reads it as it doesn't seem attractive enough, or it doesn't seem deep enough. And many people, not because they can't find good people, but because they unconsciously self-sabotage good relationships just to return to the emotional state their brain's used to, what the brain's familiar with. It considers safe. Even if that familiar thing's hurting you, a specific exercise. Next time you're in a stable relationship and feel like something seems to be missing, or I don't seem to love this person enough, Don't act on that feeling right away. Instead, stop and ask yourself, am I wanting to leave because this person really isn't a good fit? Or because I'm not used to being treated well without strings attached? Sit still with that question for 10 minutes. You don't need an answer right away. Just don't run. Every time you do that, every time you stay with peace instead of running from it, your brain's recording new data. It's learning. Oh, safety doesn't kill me. Peace doesn't mean emptiness. In neuroscience, this process is called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself through repeated experiences. Your brain isn't fixed. It changes according to what you repeat, including emotional responses. After 4 to 6 weeks of conscious practice, you'll start to notice something shifting. It's not that you've become a different person. It's that your internal standards have been raised, quietly but truly. These 3 steps won't solve everything in a day. I won't tell you that, but they start from the right place, from within, from awareness, not from surface-level behaviors that you try to change while the roots are still there. And that's the difference between true change and temporary change. Today we've gone through a fairly long journey, from thinking you were just unlucky in love to realizing you aren't unlucky at all. You're just operating according to a map drawn long before you even knew you had a choice. That map was drawn by your early life experiences, by the adults around you when you weren't old enough to understand what was happening, by the implicit beliefs you absorbed without anyone ever asking for your opinion. It's not your fault it was drawn that way, but today, if you've seen it, you have everything you need to start redrawing it, not by becoming someone else, but by gradually returning to the person you truly want to be, the one who knows they deserve to be loved without having to earn it every single day. If this video touched something in you, not because it's good, but because it rings true to what you're feeling but have never been able to name, then save it. Not for the likes or shares, though I appreciate those, but because sometimes we need to hear a truth again, right when we're forgetting it. And if you want to continue, in the next video, I'll go deep into how to rebuild self-esteem from the roots, not through morning affirmations in front of the mirror, but through concrete actions, the things that actually change how your brain perceives your own worth. I'll see you there.